Okay, it's 3:30 here in London, so I think we're going to start. Welcome to the first IFPO UK Ireland webinar of the year. We've had a huge number of people registered to attend this event from both UK, Ireland, and internationally. So welcome everyone. Numbers are coming in quite a lot at the moment. Just at the outset, I need to point out this meeting is being recorded and will be available to view online very shortly after the event. IFPO is a global membership organisation, and we're delighted to welcome our Chief Strategy Officer, Chuck Andrews, who is joining us from Texas today. Chuck.
Mike, great to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as the case may be for you around the world. And welcome to the IFPO UK Ireland webinar series. I'm Chuck Andrews, the Chief Strategy Officer for IFPO, based here in the United States. As Mike said, I'm located in Texas. Hey, it's really my great pleasure and with great enthusiasm that I get to introduce the Executive Director, Sandy Davies, who's been around for almost 40 years in this organization. And as the Executive Director, Sandy oversees IFPO's expansion and efforts globally in 56 countries. And she's also published 14 books around training and learning as it supports IFPO's training and certification efforts. So without further ado, Sandy, welcome.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I echo your comments, Chuck, in that I'm really excited about this webinar. I think that we're really making some inroads internationally, and I know that all of you are attending, may be attending for different or various reasons. First and foremost, I hope that everybody enjoys the webinar. It's an excellent opportunity to develop, work on your professional development for yourself or your employees. As we all know, as security practitioners or educators, that professional development is key to career advancement. And there's some real opportunities in the security industry right now to take advantage of those career opportunities. So again, I'm just delighted to have you here. I hope you enjoy the experience. I hope that you'll come back and visit us. But in the meantime, I want to thank all of the people behind the scenes on putting this webinar together, and as well as our presenters. I know that this is a time-consuming process, and we value and treasure your commitment to the IFPO, but in addition to paying back to the security industry, for lack of a better word. So again, a big thanks out to everybody. I think Chuck pretty much summed up my involvement with the IFPO, although he said 40 years, and I don't know if I can convince you that I was only 7 when I got started. I'm not sure. But anyways, that really ages me, like I'm a dinosaur in the industry, but I'm okay with that. So a little briefing on the IFPO. It started in 1988 in Calgary, Canada, and that's where I originally started with the organization. I'm a co-founder of the IFPO. And about in 1992, you probably just heard the about, you can get my Canadian accent. So I moved the organization to the Eastern Seaboard of the United States because it seemed to me that there was a lot more opportunities in the United States. We were doing a lot of business in the Caribbean and Mexico. And when there's 10 feet of snow on the ground, I just have to chuckle and say, I'm so glad I'm in Naples, Florida. That's where our headquarters is. And there's not a cloud in the sky today. It's going to be like 80 degrees. So I'm loving life. So the IFPO started off very slow. It was like, we'd get applications through the mail and it would take forever to process things. I mean, we've really made some major milestones in terms of delivering programs and membership. So we're very excited about what the future holds for the IFPO. We're currently in 56 countries, as Chuck, I think, mentioned. Example would be Africa, Europe, the UK, of course, Ireland, South America. Actually, one of the biggest international influence currently is the Middle East. They seem to be very excited about educational opportunities, and one of our largest clients is Saudi Aramco, that's based, of course, in the Kingdom, and they have 6,000 employees. So they're taking their security officer training very seriously. They do a combination of blended learning through online platforms as well as classroom training. So there's lots of flexibility in ways that you can use the IFPO programs, and Mike and his team in the UK can assist you in what your end result is that you're looking for. So I'm sure Mike and myself and Chuck, we all are here to help you. And the international growth is really what our strategic plan is focusing on, because of the ability now to work remotely and to deliver programs remotely through online program platforms. Our biggest area of expansion is international. So we're very excited about that. We're very excited about what's going on in the UK and Ireland. As you all know, our industry has changed significantly just since the pandemic, but over the last 5 years, even 10 years. And I just want to announce that the IFPO has launched a very special project. And what we're doing, which hasn't been done in decades, and that is to launch a research project based on the roles and responsibilities of officers in the 21st century. As you all know, and probably experienced, there's been some major trends, major new subject matters that have to be introduced into the curriculum of all of our programs. We're kicking off this research project very shortly, so please stay tuned. It's going to be groundbreaking. We're very excited about it because finally we'll have a better picture of what the complexities are of security officers. So then we can produce even more relevant educational programs. So it's been a lifelong dream of me to put this research project on the plate, and I can proudly say that it's going to happen. The last one was done in 1986 by the Hallcrest report, and all I can say about that one is there was a lot of sideburns and bell bottoms. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time with my jibber jabber, because I know that Mike has a great lineup of presenters, and they're going to deliver to you to utilize yourself or to share with others. And please, I encourage you to share it with others. Thank you for attending. I hope it's an enjoyable educational experience for you. And thank you again to everybody involved. And back to you, Mike.
Andy, thank you very much, and thank you, Chuck. Just the outline first of all. We have had some questions sent in by attendees already, but if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will try to get to as many of them as possible. Please get the questions in early. To start with, as is often the format with these things, I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and then make a brief opening statement. So, first of all, we're going to go over to Darren. Darren, do you want to say hi and tell everyone who you are?
Well, good afternoon. I'm Darren Chalmers-Stevens. I'm an IFPO Advisory Board member and also the Managing Director of Critical Arc Safe Zone, the award-winning safety and security solution. I'm very passionate about training and the next generation of security officer, having come through the career myself and progressed into the sector. So I'm looking to share some of my insights of the last 20 odd years in the sector with you this afternoon. So thanks, Mike, back to you.
I was muting myself. Okie dokie. Next up, we have Les.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you all today. My name's Les Allen. I'm also a member of IFPO's Advisory Board for UK and Ireland. I think I've clocked up so far 44 years career experience in police, government and a higher education sector. Similar to Sandy, I think I started working as a very young child to try and put my vintage a bit where I am. The organisation I work for just now has campuses throughout the UK, the Middle East and the Far East and Malaysia. I'm a frequent traveller and speaker at conferences in various points across the world, and I'm currently Vice Chairman of the Association of University Chief Security Officers, which has 236 institution members across the globe at the moment. I think I feel that I spend a large part of my working life either in interviews or on interview panels or selecting people for interview. Hence, my presentation today is based around some basic information for people who are looking for a career within security or to change their job. It's aimed at frontline security officers, and I am very much aware that many of you today are managers in various positions, and I would encourage you to use the recording of these presentations for your own staff back in the day when the seminar's over. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Yolanda.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am very proud to be with such a wonderful team of panelists and colleagues who I sit also with on the IFPO Advisory Board for the UK. Look, I don't profess to have as many years in the industry as our Les does, but I'm racking up a good 10 with a police background. I'm a member of ACIS. I sit now on a steering committee for Women in Physical Security. And I'm here today to discuss women's role in security and how we can try to readdress the balance and have more diversity in frontline security roles. So if you have a question or any ideas or suggestions around things that are working in your world, then please use this as an opportunity to discuss. Thank you.
Yolanda, thank you very much. And Gary.
Hi everybody, my name is Gary Bergen. I currently work as a commercial manager and a security consultant with Manguard Plus in Dublin in Ireland. I've over 20 years corporate security management experience, and I've previously managed the security function and departments of some of the major blue chip and governmental and international companies. I have a master's degree in security management, and I'm currently at thesis stage of a professional doctorate with the University of Portsmouth, research and training syllabus design. I'm a fellow of both the Security Institute in the UK and the Institute of Strategic Risk Management, and I'm also on the Security Advisory Board of IFPO and a Certified Protection Officer with IFPO. I currently serve as the Director of the Security Institute of Ireland and have done now for 10 years, and I'm just entering my second term as Vice Chair of the ACIS Ireland chapter. I have a major passion within the industry for training and upskilling of security staff.
Gary, thanks very much. So let's kick it off really with back to Darren with your opening presentation.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, I'm just going to transition the slide. I guess per my introduction, I'm Darren Stevens, and I guess like many of you on the call, I fell into a career in security. It wasn't my plan. I first started my journey in security back in 2000, meaning this year will be my 21st year in the industry. I was a security officer at the bank, progressed through that over the years, and I've witnessed tremendous change on a personal level, starting as a security officer, progressing through to a supervisor, and then on to a manager, before switching out to becoming a consultant and then transitioning to, some would say, the dark side, which is the manufacturing industry, supporting the sector with technology. Throughout my time, I've served in the public and private sector alike. I've operated in over 80 countries, some of which have been hostile, others of which non-hostile, which has given me quite a unique perspective on the role of a global security officer and the different traits and challenges that he and she faces. If I fast forward 20 years, I'm now the managing director of an international software company with offices across the globe supporting millions of use of software with my software, enhancing their safety and security. So again, giving that day-to-day interaction with security and the role that they do. For those of you wondering how I fell into the sector, it's quite an unusual story in that I started my career as a fully qualified chef, and I was a freak occurrence that led me into life in security. I was a successful head chef at a restaurant. One morning I turned up to work and the windows and the doors were boarded up. After inquiring what happened, the manager of the establishment had been funneling money out of the business and it went bankrupt. I needed a job and I needed one fast, and that was my entry into security. In preparation for today's webinar, I've been reflecting quite considerably on the traditional role of an officer. This included aspects of the role that are still current today and some that are not. They've included providing that vital role of being a deterrent to would-be opportunists, reassuring your community of their safety, providing medical intervention and emergency response, ensuring access and egress, providing that camera operator and have passed the VHS tape changer, which is obviously now transitioned to digital, providing that daily occurrence bookkeeper record. And for many, the role also encompassed, and still does in some cases, non-security duties such as post-room, logistics, janitorial. And to me, that demonstrates the perceived low value of the role by some of this critical function, and that needs to change. If we fast forward 20 years, the best analogy I could think of in preparation for today's presentation was the role of a security officer similar to that of a Swiss Army knife. An officer now needs a whole range of skills and tools to be able to do their job, to actually respond to the challenges and the diversity of the workplace he or she may be facing. Traditional duties I've outlined in my previous slides still exist. However, the role today is broader than ever before. It now encompasses safety, security, well-being, emergency management as core deliverables. This has led to a lot of additional responsibilities that include providing mental health support to an ever-increasing demand, as often the only 24/7 department is security. Ensuring you stay relevant and position security is also a challenge, making sure people don't just see you as an insurance requirement. Now, how do you market your department? How do you market your value is a big challenge. Technology is changing all the time. It's evolving with new systems being introduced, often being dumped into the security officer's lap. How do we make sure that individual is trained, effective with that use of technology? And actually, technology is not just being added for the sake of technology, it can become a force multiplier. We've got a global workforce that brings new challenges associated to things like language, culture, travel. All of those are challenges that we hadn't previously had to face and bring new challenges to your organization. Particularly when you've got things like fire evacuations, how do you communicate in multiple languages? How do you make sure when under crisis, people can think and act rationally and be given instructions in maybe their native language? Due in part to the recent events, that the role of a security officer is now finally starting to be given the recognition I believe it deserves as a frontline essential worker that's been supporting their communities with staying safe through COVID. And hopefully that will extend beyond the pandemic. So on reflection from me, the only constant I've witnessed over the last 20 years has been change. What's expected of a role of the security officer has morphed tremendously. The challenges we've faced and navigated together have been extreme. They've included geopolitical, increased terrorism, the banking crisis, and now COVID-19, to name but a few. Increasingly, we now have a global connected workforce that we protect who travel extensively. That results in an increased duty of care extending beyond the boundaries of buildings and campuses. Unfortunately, investment in training has lagged behind, leaving some underprepared. As a result, training is essential to support you with fulfilling your role and getting the best outcomes. And that is why I'm so passionate, and that's why I'm also on the board of IFPO's advisory, the UK and Ireland team, to try and work and deliver some of those initiatives. At that point, I'm handing back to Mike. So thank you for your time and listening to me this afternoon.
Thank you. Some interesting points there, and it does dovetail quite nicely into Les, who's going to talk largely about the career progression development opportunities. Les.
Thank you, Darren. Could you advance the slide, please? Thank you. As I indicated in my introduction, what I'm going to speak about is geared towards frontline officers, and particularly those who are looking to enhance their career a bit or change their job and whatnot. I think one of the first things that you have to consider is, what do you want your career to do? Do you want a job and that's all you want, and you're quite happy to attend your work, pick up a salary, apply for a new job? That's fine with employers as well. All they ask in return is that you do show up, you've got a good attendance record, you discharge your duties, you show a bit of integrity, and that's fine because the industry really needs tens of thousands of people like that. Conversely, if you decide that you would like to have further enhancements to your career or look for different job opportunities, you've really got to give yourself the edge. And the only way to really do that, to make yourself more marketable, is to invest in yourself, get yourself some more experience, qualifications, training. I would refer to you obviously as part of not a sales pitch, but a recommended pitch here. Look at IFPO's website for all the fairly low cost development, training and qualification opportunities that are available. I would certainly commend that to you to look to see what you can pick up to enhance your chances of changing your career, enhancing your career, and taking your ambition where you want it to go. Be aware that from an employer's perspective, most employers look very favourably on applicants who seek to enhance their own personal skills. Next slide, please, Darren. Just some tips when you're looking at applying for jobs. Invariably, everybody uses a CV of some kind. It's their mainstay support for their own application. I certainly find it time and time again looking at CVs, particularly within the security industry, where many of the applicants are coming from previous careers, particularly from the military, police, prison service, that type of background a bit. And we often see right the headline is, I have numerous transferable skills. At this point, I would say to you, think carefully how you sell your transferable skills. For instance, if you've been in the military and you're an expert sniper and you can shoot the fly off someone's nose at 2,000 meters, that's not particularly transferable into civvy street security circumstances per se, unless you're going to be in close protection or something like that. But that type of skill, you'd be better advanced that to say that is transferable because you're used to using technology and your skills within using technology are transferable to high-tech security environments within the private security sector. So always keep that in mind, what you're looking to do. It's an easy adaptation to make, to think carefully about what your transferable skills are and match them to the job description. Your potential employer would look far more favourably and give you a better opportunity for an interview as part of the process if you coach your own transferable skills and quantify and qualify how they would fit into the job. Next slide, please, Darren. One thing to remember absolutely as well, for most security jobs across the world at the moment, there's a dearth of people who are applying for them. I know just now in my own organisation, I've got several vacancies for officers and we're currently recruiting. And on average, for every vacancy that I have, we tip out around 150 to 200 applicants. So if you look at the selection panel, it's going to choose who's going to be interviewed. If everyone attaches a 6, 8 or 10-page CV, it's an almost impossible task for that potential employer to go through these to arrive at a shortlist. What's far better to put in is a brief CV explaining what your career history is. Doesn't have to be truly expanded, but what's far more important is to put in a covering letter which explains your skills. Briefly again, keep it to around 1 A4 sheet at the maximum, so that whoever's selecting the shortlist for the panel has an opportunity to select and put you into the next list of possibles for interview. I know that many times when my own organisation and others that I sit in interview panels for, where there's lengthy paperwork for people, you just don't have time to do it. And often we'll reject people that only attach a lengthy CV. You have far more opportunity to get onto the next part of the selection and get an interview if you've got a short statement that particularly matches what you can do for the job. Take time to read the job description, and it won't take you long to realise that there's many things you can do that would fit into that. So customise it in that way directly to it, to make sure that your skills are adapted to the interview process to get you in front of the interview. That's the really hard part. Once you get in front of the interview, that's going to be up to you how you manage to progress that a bit. Next slide, please, Darren. I'm very conscious we've only got a short time here. Many of you will be very au fait with what I'm going to say next, but mainly the challenges that come up for the interview. If you've got yourself in a situation where you've actually got an interview, you've still got a bit to go to get there, to get yourself in the leading edge and actually win the prize and get the job. For a start, show up on time. If organisations have a vacancy, the people who are going to sit on the vacancy panel will almost invariably all be managers. Their time is precious and they don't have time to waste on someone who for some reason doesn't show up on time. If it transpires you're going to be late because of transport failings that are out with your own control, phone in to whoever the contact is and let them know you've been delayed. They will take account of that. But just showing up late and then expecting that we're going to be delighted to see you and throw the job your direction, that could be a mistake to make. Make the effort as well. Security jobs are all going to be invariably uniform jobs or certainly of smart appearance. So make sure you make the effort and don't look as if you've been sleeping on a CTE for 2 nights before you get there. Do some research on the employer. Invariably, a lot of interview panels will have an HR representative on that. And a common question from HR participants or interview panels is certainly to ask what research you've done on the employer. It's a kind of catch-all question, just to see if you've been interested enough in your potential employment to do some research. See what you can find out about the organisation you're applying for. Give them some feedback on what you think of it. Answer honestly as well when you're asked questions. Don't prevaricate around it. If you don't know the answer, just say that. That will be appreciated and recognised rather than waste your time with a big lengthy waffle that transpires to be meaningless at the end of it. It's almost invariable as well that within interview situations, there will be a scenario type thing presented to you, or you'll be asked, which is a common one, to describe a time where you dealt with a challenging situation and how you resolved it. So at least have one in the back of your head ready for that, so that you've got some kind of feedback to make sure that your performance in interview is prepared and you're there to deliver your own intentions, to sell yourself to them. Usually at the end of the interview session, the panelists will change it back around you to see if you have your own questions on it. I find it very disappointing when people who are being interviewed, they say, well, no, not really. Or they ask about terms and conditions. Terms and conditions, hours of work, salary and benefits are all things that are there for discussion. Should you be offered the job? What you need to be able to do is say, you know, things like what are the development opportunities with this organisation? What's your expectations of me? What's the promotion prospects of it? That type of thing is really where you need to bring it to as your concluding part of it. Because remembering as well, that's the final chance you have to impress on the panel and stick in their mind when they're later on doing a sift to see who they think they're going to take forward for that particular vacancy. Could you bring up the next bullet, please, Darren? Next part, because that's my presentation over, is one thing that really strikes me significantly within the security industry is, although there can be a fair amount of diversity right across the boards in the industry, there is a distinct lack of female officers come forward. I think Yolanda will expand on that a bit more in the future. I find it very disappointing. From a university environment, I would much prefer to have the overall diversity, but certainly the gender balance around 50-50. Just when I look at the gender balance of our students and our staff populations, I find it's very difficult to achieve. Even on the aspect of potential female officers applying for vacancies, they're a very low percentage compared with the overall submissions and applications for jobs. So that's something I would encourage you to dwell on, think about why that is and what we can do to overcome it. That concludes my short presentation, and I think I've opened the door a bit for Yolanda now to go ahead with hers.
Great, thanks, Les. Yeah, the diversity, gender diversity is a big issue. Yolanda, over to you, and Sandy, obviously on the call as well. If you feel free to chip into Yolanda as well. I know she'd appreciate any thoughts from over the pond. Yolanda.
Hi, yeah, look, I mean, Les, we've had conversations, haven't we, around, you know, why there is such a low number of female applicants into the security entry level. But there's no doubt about it, you know, women do want to work in security. We've already seen over the last 10 years incredibly higher results with analytical work around cybersecurity, risk management, intelligence and investigation roles. There's a lot more women applying for those roles than there ever were. And maybe the 9 to 5 hours are more suitable for the kinds of needs that women have when they're running families. But why do women want to work in security? I guess really like anybody else. It's reliable work, it's rewarding work, it's holding a position of responsibility, reliable hours, reliable pay, It gives structure to work-life balance, and it can be a very natural adaptation to natural skill set. So why is it incredibly hard at the moment to have women in physical security roles on the front line? I guess really there are long hours, you know, early starts, late finishes, and this just isn't really conducive to women who have childcare responsibilities. So in all of the conversations I've had with people and all of the people that I've met that really do want to advocate for more women and more diversity in general in security, it's always been, how can we do it? So I'm open to have any questions around any solutions that have been tried and tested, and especially anything that has worked. Mike, have we had any questions come in yet around diversity?
We've certainly had some comments in about gender diversity, but I see we've got Sandy on the call, so Jane King has come on. I don't know whether Sandy or Jane, you've got any comments or thoughts on the diversity. I know, Jane, that's something you're very passionate about. If you can, if you're able to comment, if not, we can come back to you later on.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
We can. Hi, Jane.
Hi everyone. Sorry I was late for joining, and actually I'm on the mobile, so I don't know how much longer I'll stay with you. But yeah, so fantastic opening from Yolanda, and completely concur with everything that she was saying. And actually, as she was talking, I was thinking, you know, what can we do with diversity? So it is about, you know, the female population. They will be primary looking after the families, but also in this day and age, they'll probably be the primary carers as well. So we need to think about how we can address some of those needs. But there was some research done, and I will try and find it and send it out. I think it was in Australia, but when they looked at the way the job advert is written, that actually it's written quite masculine. So the wording used was very male orientated, so dynamic and forceful, etc. And women will look for different words. So when you're recruiting, think about the way that you write the job advert and make words more, shall we say, sensitive. All I'm going to say is I haven't got it right yet. It's a work in progress, but let's try and move forward with it. That's it. Back to you, Yolanda.
Thanks, Jane. No, that is incredibly good, and I'm sure that there'll be lots of people who will take that away. Even I hadn't considered the kind of phraseology around job descriptions. I know that we're getting better, because when we're looking for blended service delivery in receptions where we need SIA licensed qualified security personnel, but have that beautiful concierge hotel style delivery and the communication skills, that whole customer feeling when you walk through the door, that's enabling a lot more women to enter into an arena that's been fairly masculine up until this point. But have we considered job sharing? I'm trying to introduce that at the moment where I'm currently working. We've had one security officer who's just asked for some time off to go and study, which leaves 2 of his shifts every week available. So this is an ideal opportunity for us to think, okay, why don't we get someone to share his shift, and that way, you know, they can do those hours and then they can allocate other areas in their life that are important to them. But also, I think when women were introduced into the workplace back in the 20th century, last century, this was because flexi time and flexible working hours became really important and key in normal commercial and corporate working practices. So maybe we should be looking at flexi time opportunities within security, but it's a challenge. Those shifts are very structured and it's very rigid.
Hey, Mike, this is Chuck. We do have 3 related questions around women in security and diversity. Should we go into those?
Yes, please. Yeah, I mean, we want to go on to Gary Ireland as well, but I think while we're on the subject, let's press on with you, Amanda. Put on the spots.
The first one that came out was from one of the attendees and stating, quote, in response to the comment, reference attracting females to security roles, They have tried to make security roles more attractive to any candidate. And they apparently, this particular person has worked really hard on making it a nice place to work, easy to conduct initial training, providing mentors, improving and simplifying SOPs, etc. This appears to be working, and we've attracted a few different successful applicants. That's the first question or comment that came in. Yolanda, would you like to respond to that?
I think that's great. I think, yes, environment, let's face it, we've all been into security officers' break rooms, and they are usually broom cupboards hidden in a staircase or in a basement somewhere. So we've all been there and seen them. I think that's an incredibly valuable point, which even I'll take away.
We have a second one stating that I found female colleagues more analytical than male colleagues, especially in the field of security. And one of their team members who's female generally feels more confident when she shares some of these reports or transformation of that data to actual information.
I think we can agree that any workplace has a finer service delivery when you've got a complement of diversity in that workplace. There's no doubt about it. Both sexes are able to draw on each other's individual skill set, and that's why even in the police or even in the military, having male and female teams and partners in the workplace is really effective, just because brains think differently.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's one of the attendees stated that they had actually done their dissertation on increasing female participation in healthcare security, particularly. He said there's such a wide range of factors involved, from shift length to visibility, competition from other sectors with lower risk, and many security websites have no photos of female security. Job descriptions and job specs are all written by or really kind of targeted for male recruits. Very interesting comment.
Yeah, I think as recruiters, we've all got to now start to think about who we really want to attract. And going back to the comment that I had with Les, you know, even though only 4 women applied for a particular role, their CVs may not even be up to the standard we would expect, but I would still invite them in anyway. I'd have a conversation with them. I'd assess some suitability, some matching skill sets, and maybe if the CV isn't right, organizations like IFPO are very good because we could offer support in how to make a CV look better. I would invite anybody to approach us who's struggling to get into this sector, finding those glass walls and doors everywhere, because just join a network, go onto LinkedIn, look at other associated groups, get talking to people, approach us, knock on the door. We're here to help.
Great. Chuck, Les has got a point to make, I think. There's only Les.
Yes, just very briefly to go back to the start of this particular session and to reflect on something that Jane said. I was very conscious that when we were failing in recruitment, particularly of female applicants, so we changed our whole approach to our advertisements and the job spec and whatnot, and taking away from the traditional sort of watch, guard and patrol type ethos, so that we didn't give the impression that's all that the job entails. We focus far more on softer skills, safeguarding approach, customer care, all that type of thing. And that did improve the number of applicants that we got. It didn't necessarily improve the quality of applicants, but it certainly did improve the number of applicants. And invariably, we always try to, if someone is even close to what we're looking for, we will interview everyone. You will appreciate that some applications that come in are just hopeless, and you'd never interview in any time. But within higher education sector in the UK, the sector average for female officers in university and college security services sits around 11%. We were in that position around 4 years ago, and when we restructured our approach to it, we now sit around 31, 32% of our current complement. As I said earlier, I would like it to be 50%, but I think we're doing quite well in it. I think that comes down to changing our approach and how we advertise it, and we advertise the need for soft skills rather than just frontline guard type skills. Thank you.
Les, thanks for that. I think let's try and come back to this maybe at the end, but recently, largely through demand from members, we've expanded IFPO UK to being IFPO UK Ireland, and we're delighted to have Gary Bergen on the call, who is leading the charge for us over in the Republic. Gary.
Hi, Mike. Look, the reason I was drawn to IFPO initially was purely from a business and training perspective, as of a huge passion for training. But from a business perspective, there's been a significant rise in the amount of data centers being built in Ireland, which is rising and will continue to rise over the next few years. These centres are primarily operated by multinationals or global corporations, and Dublin in the last few years has effectively become a data hub in Ireland. As there's so many security qualifications in the industry now at senior management levels, such as ACES CPP, CISM, master's degrees, and even doctorates. As a senior manager at Vanguard, we were looking for a qualification or a group of qualifications that were aimed at security officer level, so we could bridge that knowledge gap between entry-level security officers and the security supervisor and management level. And these qualifications kind of had to be recognised, like the ACES CPP, PSP, or PCI, by our international counterparts, as I felt there was a lack of understanding from their perspective on QQI or FETAC standards or BTEC standards internationally, and we wanted to give them something that they know that they could benchmark from. We're all aware that globally the ACES CPP accreditation is seen as the gold standard for security. So from this, we wanted a progressive route for security officers to follow, and we found that with the IFPO. If you look at entry-level security in Ireland, they hold a QQI or FETAC level 4 qualification in basic guarding. The next logical step in my mind is for that officer to complete the CPO or the Certified Protection Officer qualification, and from there they could complete the CSSM, which is the Certified Supervisor and Security Manager qualification, which would leave that officer qualified to at least senior supervisor or security management level. From that position, they'd be able to start the ACES programs then, such as the CPP, the PCI, and the PSP courses, and then on to masters, doctorates, and degrees, masters, and doctorates if they wish. We have the highest amount of CPP qualified people in Europe. And I see the IFPO courses as a stepping stone to achieving these standards, which I said is the gold standard in security, specifically from a US perspective. The majority of data center companies are based in Ireland. That's why the CPP qualification is seen as a prerequisite for many of those senior security positions within that sector of the industry. What I have found is the beauty of the IFPO courses is that they follow the same format as the ACES examinations of those multiple choice questions. And obviously the questions get harder with each exam, which requires higher levels of engagement and study from the students. It's also worth mentioning that the IFPO has recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the ACES Ireland chapter, and I see this as a positive step for those aspiring security officers and supervisors to progress their careers within the industry, and that's what we can provide now in the industry is a progressive career and not a job, like Les said earlier.
Thanks, Gary. I want to go to a couple of questions, but just obviously you're very involved with security professionally in Ireland. What I think you've outlined it partly anyway, but what is the gap that IFPO could fill there? Because it's a crowded marketplace, but there's a space for IFPO in Ireland.
Absolutely, there's a space for it because there's nothing between security officer and senior manager, and that's what I'm looking to bridge, that gap between security officer to bring them up to lead guard, team leader, supervisor, and on to manager. And I mean, as I said earlier, Dublin is now the hub for data centers and GSOCs. For example, in 2020, Dublin took over from Paris to join Frankfurt, London, and Amsterdam as the top 4 cities in providing data centers in Europe. By 2025, 4.5 billion of data centers will be built in Ireland, which will require qualified security professionals to protect them. I mean, why not IFPO? I feel that the security personnel need to be better educated to meet the needs and educational requirements of these international companies. Along with ACES qualifications, the IFPO qualifications are highly regarded by these US multinationals, along with the ACES, and it shows an appetite for learning. The incremental levels of difficulty will ultimately prepare the upcoming students to take those ACES courses, third level courses if they wish, and bridge those gaps and get these senior level jobs. The IFPO provides security personnel with the ability to take charge of their own career. These courses help them to enhance their skill set and build better resumes through continuous personal development, which I believe is a personal responsibility. It's not down to your employer. It actually rests with you. We hope in Ireland that, and in the UK chapter, that the numbers increase, and then we'll develop mentor programs for up and coming industry professionals. I mean, I currently mentor several people in the industry, and to be honest, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people who mentored me and still do. In a community-driven organisation like IFPO, you have access to that already established support system of experienced people who are motivated to get things done. I mean, your battle is half won. You have a captive audience of people who can and they want to help you and support you. I feel that being part of a professional security organisation like IFPO gives you an excellent opportunity to enhance your professional security network within your industry so that you can keep tabs on what's happening. You never know, you might even meet your new employer. We'll try to accomplish these through webinars, lectures, meetings, obviously once the COVID restrictions are lifted, so our members can keep themselves updated on the latest industry innovations, research and trends. And you become an advocate for your industry at the IFPO, as most companies have the same, we all have the same issues that impact nearly all businesses that operate within this space, including the different laws, regulations, policies, that can prevent businesses from growing to their full potential. And professional security organizations like IFPO can even lobby the security industry regulatory bodies in your country, or even the governments, on behalf of the industry to ensure that their interests are protected.
Right, Gary, thanks very much indeed. There's one quick question that I just wanted to answer because it's a quick answer. Someone asked about skills-based CVs as opposed to sort of the chronological ones. I think the answer is a blend of the two. People still expect to see a traditional CV, resume, whatever you call it. But what I'm doing now is having people do a mix of it. So skills highlighted, but also the by time served as well. Okay. Another thing that we're
I think, to be honest, Mike, it's if you can demonstrate competence through your CV, and I mean the only way you can demonstrate competence is through experience and qualifications. That's how you demonstrate competence. And obviously answering those questions that Les brought up, what did you do in this situation? How would you do it in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing that IFPO is, particularly in the UK and Ireland, are going to be championing, and it will be championing very much, is the issue of mental health and well-being. And we've all seen the death rate amongst security officers, particularly male security officers, through COVID. It's disproportionately high, by the highest rates. Thoughts about what we can do to support officers, both physically and through their mental health, their well-being? Anyone any thoughts on that? I mean, I don't know. I know we could launch some training on this in the next shortly. But Chuck, how are you doing that issue over in the US, the well-being issue?
Well, listen, Mike, we're not doing it as well as the UK and Ireland and Europe, right? In terms of promoting mental health awareness and training and exposure to the topic. I know IFPO UK Ireland has done some great exposure, right, here in the last couple of months in trying to promote this. And the more we talk about it, the more we share and the more transparent we are about this ongoing struggle, the better we'll be for it as an industry. Look, suicide rate is very high in the law enforcement industry in the United States, more than officers that are actually killed, right? So this is a real concern, and I'm glad that we're addressing this IFPO globally, but great emphasis and great work that you and your board have done on promoting this, and we'll continue to promote it. I think we've got some training and awareness that's going to be coming out on this as well. Correct, Mike?
Absolutely, that's sort of a work in progress, but watch this space. And I wonder, another question which sort of different, that perhaps for Darren, how do we feel that the role of technology is going to affect the role of the rise in technology is going to affect the role of security officers over the next few years? Darren?
Thanks, Mike.
Darren?
I guess a couple of areas there. So firstly, technology is evolving, as I mentioned earlier, and some of that's good, some of that not so good. It really has to serve a purpose, and security officers, sometimes their most effective tool is a wheelie chair in the control room, because they get so many systems added to that control room that really they are the most effective tool going between those different systems. So I think they have to be integrated. And they have to act as a force multiplier approach, where adding something will make that role and that officer's duty more effective. And communication is a big one. Be able to create that force multiplier approach where you can communicate to large volumes of people. Training, again, is a big piece. Again, often technology is introduced without the rigorous sort of thought process behind how it's going to impact operations, SOPs. Continuing to train as well. Training once is not good enough. You need to continually train the individuals. New versions of the software and technology comes out. So to get the most out of technology, you really need to think about what the objectives are, making sure you've got plans in place to fulfill those, to measure those, to train the individuals to get the best out of those systems would be my initial thoughts on that.
Great, thanks, Darren. And just, one, I don't know if we'll keep an eye on the chat, but there's been great comments in the chat. Felin Rowe is going to put a link in the chat in a moment. We've been working with Felin promoting this event and his event tomorrow. So if anyone wants to, he has some great speakers tomorrow. So please, once he's posted the link, feel free to check out the sessions tomorrow. Going back to the diversity issue, Yolanda, you mentioned about perhaps offering the split shifts, time off and this sort of thing. How realistic is that? How hard is it to manage that from an operational point of view?
Well, I think our currency in security is to trade in hours, and it's still very difficult to get even client teams around the mindset that we could be looking at it a different way. But I think it's the security providers, the outsourced security companies that really could take a lead. And I think if we delivered it and provided good business justification, I'm sure every single client would say, great, I really am supporting your initiative to introduce more diversity into our workplace. But on the flip side, I've been quite close to circumstances where clients have been very worried about having female security officers as first responders working on night shifts in a lone role. But really, there shouldn't be those concerns, because if we're a responsible organisation, we have all of the right procedures and processes in place and the right training and delivery, and everybody understands their roles. There shouldn't be a concern that just because a woman's doing a night shift on her own, that she's at more risk than a man. So some things to consider there, but we've got a real opportunity to really try and lead and influence.
Absolutely.
And just had a comment from Chris Middleton, also on our advisory board. It's about a question really. How do we change the perception? The comment he made is, I want someone to work with someone who has my back if things go wrong. Is perhaps asked as a Les as an end user. Is the perception that female officers are less able to deal with issues? It shouldn't be, but what's it like out?
Certainly in the tertiary education sector, I don't think that really comes into it. I think there's equal confidence in the female officers that they have. I could see perhaps there is something from different type environments, but certainly the environment that I've been in for the last countless years, female officers are certainly regarded in terse situations exactly as capable as male counterparts to back up a colleague. I don't see that as an issue in a sector that I'm working in. we have had some recent experiences. For instance, last week I had a young female officer who was assaulted by a student. It wasn't because she was a female. I think it was just because she was there and she actually did a good job of it. And I don't really think it impacts on the sector that I'm in. Perhaps some of my colleagues who are on this from the tertiary education sector would disagree in their own experience, but certainly in my rather extensive experience, it's not been an issue currently. I would say that has been an issue in my previous career when I was a police officer, but we're going back a long time now. When I was a police officer, and that certainly was a very prevalent thing there. But from personal experience, even going back, far back in the day when I was a police officer, I found the female officers that were there, I would have rather had some of them with me than some of my male colleagues that I worked with at some of the police stations I was at. So
yep.
I don't really take that there. Okay.
Thanks, Les. We're not going to get to all the questions, unfortunately, but one I think is sort of cuts across both things. Security is moving and has moved from something that's purely operational to something that's more strategic, and the officers obviously have to be part of that. Any thoughts about how an officer, a frontline officer, supervisor can take a more strategy-based approach to things rather than being purely reactive? Anyone want to sort of, anyone thoughts on there and how you're doing things?
Jumping in?
Gary, yeah, please, Darren. Yeah, go on.
I think on this one, we've seen there's different personalities obviously in the sector. Some that are obviously wishing to fulfil their job, as Les mentioned earlier on, and go home at the end of the day, and others that are looking at opportunities for raising the profile of their department, to raise the value of their department. And those are the ones we see are out there proactively initiating conversations with other departments, looking at collaborative services, looking at shared services, especially around things like health, safety and well-being. Traditionally they're three siloed departments. Now potentially those functions coming together or collaborating together gets better outcomes, so that if someone is requiring, for example, mental health support, there is a joined up approach of the way the business approaches supporting, signposting, communicating, so that they don't get conflicting messages across the business. So I think that's one area. And I think other parts is really, again, during COVID, we've seen security officers working strategically with the business, assessing how they can support the continuity of business. How do they support critical activities? So if you look at the education sector that Les is in, we've had things like laboratories have had to stay open during this period. So security have been frontline supporting keeping campuses open. I'm sure that replicates across into other sectors as well. So they would be my initial thoughts. I'm sure other people on the panel would have others.
Thanks, Darren. We've literally got a couple of minutes left and we want to finish on time. Just to conclude, Sandy, Chuck, do you have anything you want to say from a sort of a global perspective, or from the HQ?
Sandy, please.
You're muted. You're muted.
The nefarious mute button. Is she still there? I don't see her.
Yes, I am. I was just having troubles figuring out where the button was to unmute myself. So I said I deflect that to you, Chuck, because I think that you have even a better pulse on what's going on globally than I, to a certain extent. So please go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. Just real quick. Listen, the IFPO is on the rise, and as a few of the panelists had to say today, we are closing the gaps between that security management leadership level and the security officer, closing the gap. Gary spoke to that eloquently today. You're going to see much more of that. Very exciting with our research project, unprecedented. It's going to be worldwide and everybody's going to benefit. So for, to Sandy's point, the Hallcrest report and the CRIS reports, we're talking 40, 50 years ago. This research that we're doing is unprecedented, has not been done in decades. This is going to be a big win for IFPO, its members, and for the security industry worldwide, and we're looking forward to it. We're also looking forward to more webinar series from the UK Ireland and other regions around the world. Thank you for joining us. Mike, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close us.
Chuck, thanks very much. Chuck and Sandy, thank you for joining us from the US. Thanks to the panel, and I think some really interesting points covered there. Final point, Paul, we've got the slide on there. We have our app, the IFPO app, so please feel free to download that. It's on the website, or drop me an email. There will be a follow-up email from this. Look at the websites. We also a new wellbeing address for people who want to talk about things. Not on there, but we do have the IFPO Ireland website as well. So which is IFPO Ireland. .org, I think it is, but have a look at that for just the main ones. But thanks for everyone. This will be it's our first one of hopefully many. So thanks very much, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.